Hello and welcome to our show. Yesterday we promised you we'll be here, and thank God for His mercies. He has made it possible for us to be here. Our conversation today will still center on the role of or the state of Nigeria's infrastructural development. Yesterday was quite interesting as we had very interesting guests and features. Like we started yesterday, our focal point is still on the state of Nigeria infrastructural development. We're going to be shifting gear a bit to abandoned projects all over the nation, but our first feature, as usual, is a backgrounder. It will tell us more and set the tone for our show.
It is a known fact that investing in infrastructure is good for the economy, both now and in the future. In Nigeria, the federal government's annual budget reflects this, with the Ministry of Works, Power and Housing receiving the highest allocation in the past 5 years.
We are very deficient in infrastructure, to the point that it's estimated that government would need on annual basis much more than, let's say, over 20 to 50 trillion naira to really, for consistent use to update us on infrastructure. It means is that you need a lot of infrastructure to drive investment, infrastructure to connect market, to bridge the rural urban disparity, because essentially most rural areas where you have subsistence farming, agriculture, the infrastructure is critical to increasing their economic sustainability in terms of income, having access to market and order. So we lack those infrastructure.
A recent survey carried out by the Chartered Institute of Project Management of Nigeria gave a shocking revelation on the number of abandoned projects scattered across the country. What was most shocking in the report was that the abandoned project with regards to the structures already on ground amount to over 12 trillion naira.
We do infrastructure to respond to political convenience. We don't first plan it well and put the experts to think in terms of sustainability, that this infrastructure might look attractive today because we can make the budget. But can we sustain this infrastructure? First complete it, we don't even complete them.
Housing projects, for instance, are supposed to be beneficial to both the individuals and society at large, as it depicts the level of a country's development. But the incessant abandonment of these housing projects undoubtedly has some negative impact on the people, real property values, the construction industry, and the built environment.
We have some people who had quick access to funds, and then it didn't continue. They set up gigantic structure, they couldn't finish it. And because they didn't plan, we don't, at a partner level, we're not people who plan our investment, our expenditure. Just like our politicians do, we too are instinctive. You know, you come across money, it's fashionable to buy a house in Guzape, you buy a land and start building. You couldn't finish it. That's one aspect.
The President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration is not unaware of this challenge, as it has created hope in the lives of Nigerians by reviving works on some abandoned projects across the country.
The government approach is the right approach to revive infrastructure, because first, there's an argument to sell off. You know, carcass, said to private sector. I don't think we should be selling everything. I support the revival of the National Theatre. There are certain institutions that are critical for development. Cultural development is important. And it's a magnificent building, even though deteriorated. So reviving it, restoring it is important. So the government is doing well by, I think it's a good idea, a good framework to say, let's start from recovering. Then we expand, but we see the gap. So if we have existing infrastructure that are not optimized because they are broken down, they are no longer useful, functionally useless. Put them back together. It will be cheaper than building new ones.
The solution lies with citizens to monitor projects that have been budgeted and funded because the responsibility is a collective one. From the legislators to the men on the street, from the government in releasing procurement information to the contractors implementing the projects in communities.
There should be some kind of national summit on infrastructure, not just to talk about how much we spend, but look at the cultural component of infrastructure development, behavior-wise, in terms of how do we plan as a people. Because infrastructure is not just what government creates. The private sector creates infrastructure. But number two is that government should institutionalize a framework that creates coherence, discipline around project development, so that we develop project with a clear sense of realism. This is doable, financing, and sustainability all put together. And thirdly is sustainability. How do we ensure in two levels that these projects complete? That means we'll start and we'll finish building, okay? Secondly, we finish building, commission, and are able to replace, repair, and maintain for a good period of, let's say, 50 years. So we should be thinking about infrastructure like 25 years to 50 years.
There is need to evolve creative options to generate long-term finance to tackle Nigeria's infrastructural challenges. Therefore, Weekend Deal today focuses on the state of infrastructural development in Nigeria. Weekend Deal!
That background there is put together by Francis Ogbe. Well done. Okay, our show will just start now. We'll go to Victoria Island, Lagos, where they are taking a look at the state of the old secretariat and the NIPOS building in Lagos. What is happening there now?
The growing burden of abandoned projects in Nigeria generally, and Lagos State in particular, has been on the front burner for quite some time. Most abandoned projects are, however, structured base, a menace of concrete jungle, a colossal waste of resources. On several occasions, most of these projects are abandoned for several reasons, some of which can be as a result of wrong purchase of landed property, change of investment purpose, leadership instability, community interference, relocation of owners, and inconsistent policies.
Every building standing on a land that is not occupied, that is not used, and is not is abandoned, to say so, is an economic waste. Because particularly in a place like Lagos, where land is of very high value.
Since the relocation of Nigeria's capital city to Abuja in December 1991, properties belonging to ministries and agencies have sadly been abandoned, making such buildings to house criminals and miscreants.
It is a very dangerous thing that the government abandoned these projects that were Nigerian tax money were used in building those places, those structures. Even when the government capital was moved from Lagos to Abuja, those buildings are supposed to be put in place. There are so many Nigerians that are homeless. So many Nigerians are homeless. So many Nigerians are just suffering here and there. Yes, even the personnel, the civil servants themselves, if they are given those houses or projects to the civil servants to live and pay, it will be of a great help.
Abandoned buildings in Lagos are said to be over 60, some of which include the Independence Building, which used to house the Ministry of Defense, the National Assembly Complex at Tafawa Balewa Square, NITA Building, Federal Secretariat Ikoyi, and many others.
It is obvious. Let's take for example the Federal Secretariat along behind the Dam Barracks. It has become a house of miscreants. I even thought some times ago they wanted to make it a residential building, but later they said there was a litigation on it. Look at the Federal Ministry of Works. Look at the National Assembly. All these things have turned to hideout for criminals. It is a high time the government of the day takes possession of these houses, convert them to the use of every Nigerian.
Though efforts have been made in the past to get the federal government hand over such buildings to Lagos State government, It is also believed that the issue of maintenance culture is a major challenge.
The government should stand up to its responsibility. The property that they claim it is theirs, if they cannot manage it, let them give it to people that can handle it.
It is, however, uncertain if the federal government is willing to hand over the buildings to the Lagos State government, or there are plans to revive and put such buildings to good use and make the areas where such buildings are situated safe and contribute to the growth of our economy.
Okay, we'll be talking about the state of the NIPOS building in Lagos, but it's also happening here in Abuja, where we have so many projects that have lasted for so long and some that have not been completed. Charles Obike has a feature on the state of abandoned project around the FCT.
Urban and rural infrastructural development involves up-to-date execution of projects at varied levels of government interest.
The way our system is run is not run the way it ought to be. That's why we have good projects, as in good intentions, but we cannot finish it. We are good starters, we don't finish up. Why? Because our policies are not followed up, because they don't have check and balances within the system. In the sense that there ought to be monitoring and evaluation officers. There's supposed to be enforcement officers. They need to be back and forth between those who brought out the contract or the project and those who are to execute, and the contractors who are competent enough to do the job.
Me, I think it's lack of commitment from the executors and promoters of government projects. If there will be commitment and less of corruption, we won't have abandoned projects. I can give you example like this National Library. One certain time I was listening to NTA news. It was awarded initially at the cost of 8 billion, but due to being abandoned, it rise up to 30-something billion, yet it is not completed.
Nigeria's polity associated with economic growth and regional challenges remain issues of concern in policies affecting federal, state, and local government.
They have a lot of abandoned projects, refineries, other factories that are not working. I can't mention, but I only know but few. That was the reason why I made mention of Delta State Company, Ajokuta Steel Plant. Then talking about running down from Abuja to Delta State, Edo State and all that, you see abandoned factories there. These are places that are supposed to generate money to this country, but yet they are not functioning. Go to Kaduna, you see abandoned factories. These are places that are supposed to fetch money, generate money, even making all these jobless youths to be busy, generate something for themselves and all that. So if you ask me, I will say please and please, I'm using this media to beg our federal government to come to Nigerian youth aids.
The glory of the country's past and present image vividly center on delays and execution of awarded contracts characterized by negligence and corrupt practices. Lingering, uncompleted and abandoned projects in Nigeria are best identified as a waste of resource, dwindling the socio-economic progress of the country in service delivery.
So government needs to go into private partnership to see how we can solve our infrastructural problems. This is one of the ways. And once a project is awarded, we should ensure its conclusion to the letter by following due process, execution, provision in the budget. These are some of the things that make a lot of contribution. So once we eliminate this, we won't have abandoned project. Let's just let there be commitment. That's the most important thing.
There is no doubt there has been serious deficits in terms of infrastructural development in FCTA. But the government has been trying, but I wish to say they need to do more. You can see now, this is a road that is supposed to be a collector road serving us. But you can see part of the primary schools are blocked. People have been building. Just look at this side. Because the infrastructure has been neglected, people have built, have blocked off the area. This is how we feel. We that are living here, it's very difficult for us to assess. You can see children now coming from school, they will get late. You know, the problem is really pathetic.
A nationwide easing of infrastructure challenges will have a positive effect on the people.
Indeed, the government is doing so much, but there's still so much to be done. I am smiling because I have my first live guest in the house. He's an ASU businessman, an entrepreneur, a man passionate about the Nigerian project. He's also the MD CEO of Ego Block. E-Blocks is an architectural solution to our housing problems in Nigeria. Please join me in welcoming to the Weekend Day studio, Mr. Emmanuel Akbako. Sir, you're welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. We are happy you are here. So I'm sure you've been following our conversations. It started yesterday, and we've been talking about the state of Nigeria's infrastructural development. How do you assess it as a private sector man?
To be sincere, it's a big concern looking at the state of the infrastructure of our country, Nigeria. But on the other hand, we have, over time, got used to most of the challenges in the infrastructure of this country. And I believe strongly that the situation of the country's infrastructure need urgent reviving, which of course the current administration is looking at that area. Of course, we can see a lot of massive changes so far. Of course, a lot of people are complaining, projects are abandoned, and so many things are happening. But of course, we as a nation, we must understand that government is a framework which we must follow to ensure that where things are falling apart, we must find solutions to bring it to a better position. Okay.
The government, like you said, rightly observed, is doing so much. But do you think the government alone can carry the weight of developing our infrastructure? As a private sector man, what do you think?
Absolutely no. Looking at other countries like Dubai, United Arab Emirates, 90% of the economy of Dubai is driven by the private sector. We that are in the private sector, we see the partnership with government as the solution to ensure we have a nation where we have all the necessary infrastructures in place, reviving even the ones that are dead, leaving those that will be more cost effective. To some extent, the private sector has a big role to play because, for an instance, for example, if you look at the current government, they have been able to address certain abandoned projects, which they are reviving, which of course is a big plus to them. But bringing in the private sector will speed up every area in this economy that will gear up, giving us a nation where from transportation to education to health and engineering, agriculture, where the private sector has a big role to play completely. And I can assure you, within a very short time, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you will be shocked to see how fast Nigerian development will go.
Okay, we are speaking with our first guest, but I want to quickly remind you that our feedback lines are on display. Our feedback lines are on display. We want to hear from you, want to hear what your thoughts are, your recommendations, and even your questions. Okay, so, but do you think the government so far has carried along the private sector? Because, like you said, a partnership with the private sector will see an improvement in our infrastructural development. Do you think the private sector have been carried along properly, or the government needs to do more in this regard?
Actually, the private sector has not really been so carried properly because if you look at some of the projects we have in the country today, the government, of course, on their own is doing everything possible to see how they meet up to the needs of the people. But the private sector involvement is key because some of us that are in the private sector, we look at solutions like bringing factories into the country,
where we create job opportunities for Nigeria, reducing the foreign exchange to other countries, of course, like in China and all these other countries. So I feel that government should focus 80% of their infrastructures in partnership with the private sector.
The private sector. Okay, now we're talking about abandoned projects here. The studies project, they cannot finish it. It's abandoned. It's taking so long to complete. What do you think should be done with this abandoned projects that the government is handling and they cannot finish? What is your advice?
Yes, I've taken my time to look at the current administration in areas of handling abandoned projects, and we must give credit to this government because there was a continuity in this current administration for an abandoned project that they came to meet, which of course is a big plus for them. Sure. And of course, we must commend the administration and also see it as a tax for the incoming administration to continue what this current administration is doing. Because in an abandoned project, you need to understand that some of these projects over time, some of the equipment, some of the properties, the building might have maybe dilapidated, the equipment might be obsolete. So the money you will use to revive it, it is even better for you to put up new structures, bring in new equipment. Can you give an example?
Do you have any project that you would advise that, okay, instead of this project to be continued, we need to pull it down and start, for example?
Okay, let me use my state, for example.
Okay.
The Taraku mills in Benue, for example, looking at the production of groundnut oil and other oils you can get from there. The equipment there, as at the time the equipment were installed, of course, because of no continuity in terms of the production capacity, the cost to revive those equipment, looking at where technology is going down and people are having new age equipment and the rest, it's cheaper or more affordable for you to take out the old equipment, bring in new equipment because the structure is still there. You understand? Now, what of the equipment you have, the people to even manage it is a problem because, for example, if you tell me now that come and take over this factory, I need people to understand the equipment there. Technology is changing very fast now, just like you see mobile phones and all that now. So most abandoned projects, our concentration is when you bring in the private sector into it, he assess it. Look at how much do I need to put up this structure back in place. If I look at the cost and it's expensive, I would definitely want to start it all over again. So you don't spend so much money trying to revive something than you starting all over from the scratch. And within a short time, you can get it done.
Okay, but again, now that you said this, something just occurred to me. At the Taraku Mills, using that as a case study in our discussion, has been there for so long. Why haven't any of you private sector players, okay, I want to revive the Taraku Mills? Is it that the government is not asking you to come in, or why? And I'm using that as an example. It's happening all over the nation. Why are people not going over to say, I want to revive or revamp something like the Taraku Mills? Because I used to enjoy their oil way back as a child.
You see, government has a policy.
Okay.
And in every administration, the government prepare themselves for incoming projects. And when government look at projects they have on ground, it is very difficult for government to maybe engage a private sector, individual or maybe companies to revive a company where it's not part of your plan. Everybody has a template.
Okay, I agree.
Yes, like I am not into oil.
Okay.
In as much as I'm not into oil, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Of course, Taraku Mills is a big project. By the time there's a PPP and there's a framework, it enables an individual to identify where are the opportunities in a particular state. Which area is he interested in? He will now be the one to approach the government to make requests in partnership on areas that is already outlined by government. Because there are some projects that government might not want to engage a private sector from the beginning. Look at the railway, for example. You can see how massively Nigeria, like now I'll be going to Ibadan to Lagos by rail. Imagine if after finishing from Ibadan to Lagos, I'm taking Ibadan to maybe Abuja, cutting across Maiduguri, Kano and all that, Benue. It will reduce the challenges of insecurity on the roads, you understand? Government can partner with private sectors to bring in cargo trains. It's part of what I will also on my own. I'm interested to, of course, see how we can begin to work on our own the rails, because you see transportation, of course, you look at our roads are not so good. Government is working seriously, ensuring that, like from Makurdi to Benue now, from Abuja to Makurdi, if you go, you see them working on the road there. But while that is going on, private sectors should see how they can begin to bring in trains. These things are affordable. If you go to China, you see cargo trains, you see normal trains moving. So private partnership will solve government speed in tackling expansion of our
Okay,
economy.
while we are talking, it's funny that our example is on Benue State, because we are now going to Benue State to see the state of the Sheraton Hotel that has been ongoing for so long. What's happening there now? Let's go to Benue.
Without maintenance, buildings deteriorate and eventually become scenes such as these. When not in use, according to experts, the materials will be subjected to harsh weather elements and temperatures. Such scenes are dotted in some areas in Benue State, Nigeria, like in any other parts of the world. Sheraton Hotel, now known as Makurdi International Hotel, an international hotel franchise which serve business, leisure travelers or visitors, over the years have been laid dormant for quite a while. However, in the recent past, maintenance work is in full swing. Skeletal services are also offered to keep the place going, and gains are reploughed back into the building to make it more habitable and to be the luxurious brand it is known to be worldwide.
Facilities we put together, the gym, very functional, one of the best gyms so far in this location. It's a stage-of-the-art gym that can fit it in any culture. No matter your class, when you come in there, you feel at home. We have a world standard pool out there for adults, adolescents and children. Then we have a good enabling environment for children parties, wedding occasions. Of course, we have a series of weddings and receptions that take place in here. People come here, take photo shots and stuff like that, making the place work. We just want to make sure it works.
Because of the delay on government to complete that building, government now had to lease it because government actually does not have the money to finish that property. And so the property was leased to an organization. The lease agreement was that they would complete the building and then manage it and then pay government some money, take what was theirs, bring the money actually. And they were supposed to bring about ₦1 billion. Now, as they started renovating, the technicalities that they faced was that the sockaway of that property is actually in another compound that was allotted to another person, and some of the other maintenance chambers. And then at the same time, when they were leased that hotel, they were also leased with the Makurdi beach. In case you're not aware, Makurdi has a beach, and it's a beautiful beach with white sand. So they were leased with that beach. Now, these people had actually started working there, and then the issue of compensation came. That's the sad reality. But His Excellency is working and trying as much as he can. He's ready also to pay the compensation, part of the monies that he was supposed to pay. He said he would pay in installmental. So if that works, I'm sure that we should see some more beautiful tourist and recreational facility in Benue State.
It takes people moving around. It takes activities for cash to flow. So with the state of COVID, right, with the state of the world now, coupled with the COVID saga, it's not really easy for us. It's not easy, just like it's not easy for anybody in the nation or around the world.
And as these challenges are being surmounted gradually at Makurdi International Hotel, its future looks indeed brighter.
For some of us who grew up in Makurdi, Benue State, this is cheering news. That project has been ongoing forever. It's just so nice to know that activities have begun to pick up there. My guest is still in, so he'll weigh in. He's a Makurdi person too. So, I mean, how do you react to the news that our Sheraton Hotel is beginning to show some semblance of activity?
Yeah, for me, it's a welcome development, looking at the fact that Benue, if you look at Benue as a state, is in the middle, cutting across Nasarawa, Taraba, Enugu, Abuja, and all that. Tourism is one major area that can generate income for any state. And if that hotel is, of course, put back, we have the Benue hotels closer, we have the Benue Metropolitan and other areas of attraction. It will draw people to the state. Makurdi is close. A lot of people will go there to spend weekend and enjoy the Sheraton Hotel, the waterways and all the beautiful.
And enjoy our food, our pounded yam,
yam.
and so many wonderful things we have in Benue. Okay, you've established here in the course of our conversation that government alone cannot do it, and that there's a need for a synergy between the private sector and the government. As a player, as a private sector man, I call you that, what have you done on your own to say, okay, I have this, I'm contributing this?
Yes, I think for me, as an individual, and of course, I'm the consul of the Philippines in Nigeria.
Okay.
I'm the consul representing the Philippine government in the Philippine consulate in Lagos. One area of increasing to tie up the bilateral relationship between Philippines and Nigeria, I am strengthening the business trade unit by bringing in businesses from the Philippines that will help to bring job closer to our people. In areas of infrastructure, currently I brought in a company which we are putting up a factory right now in Makurdi, Benue State. It's a fabricated panel which is called E-Block, which you can build a house in a very fast time. His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Benue State, Governor Dr. Samuel Otom, gave us a big land, free, which we are already putting up the factory.
And that factory will also help in infrastructure
development. It will create job opportunities. It will help the real estate sectors and the rest. You see, so as an individual, you see, we have contributed, of course, through my company Alliance in Motion Global, which we have almost 5 million distributors in Nigeria. So we have to work with government.
So I mean, it's another cherry news in the public domain is the fact that the National Theatre is being worked on. I know you also stay in Lagos.
Yes,
How do you react to that news?
I am so happy because this administration have taken it upon themselves to bring back some of the arts and culture we, growing up as youth, we always like to meet. As a youth, I believe strongly that the present administration, considering to revive the National Theatre, will be a big plus. Of course, entertainment is one of the biggest revenue generation for countries like America and the UAE. So with what government is doing there, we should on our own also see how we can be of partnership with them too, because I can tell you most of the equipments, most of the things that will keep that place back to what the government need the private sector.
Oh, good. Okay, I want to say thank you so much, Consul Emmanuel Akpaku, for honoring our invitation. I mean, it's the fact that government alone cannot provide the much needed infrastructure. There must be a partnership, but there must be a synergy between the private and public sector for us to get the much needed infrastructure for the country to be developed and grow. Thank you so much, sir, for coming. We'll go on a short break.
Thank you.
Don't go away.
And no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youth, unifying the nation.
Okay, welcome back. We told you we want to hear from you, and thank you. We are hearing from you. So I'll be taking one or two of your messages before we move on to the next feature. This is great. This is from somebody says here. Says greater patience and the able guest. Private sector is the way to go, as the guest has said. Nigeria has nothing new to design. It can just learn from other nations and develop our economy. John Uchara. New GRA Makodi. And then we have okay, and then there's this from Mark K from Auchi, Edo State. Let the federal government give abandoned projects to private to handle. They can't do it alone. All these people are still laying credence to what we say. The abandoned building, the money meant for the project is supposed to be delivered. It's meant for the project and should be delivered in so that we can get success at the end of it all. From Idealu Gariki, Abuja. Okay, there are more messages, but let's quickly go on to Lagos to see the state of the renovation going on at the National Theatre.
Every country has several public infrastructure that aids development and impacts on the steady growth of its economy. In Nigeria, there are several projects worth billions which have become wasting assets. According to the report of the Abandoned Project Commission in 2011, it was recorded that 11,886 federal government projects were abandoned in the past 40 years. Lagos State, for instance, has legions of abandoned federal government properties, which the nation's wealth was invested on them. Such edifices should be considered national monuments and made into money-spinning ventures. It might interest you to know that these projects, such as National Stadium and National Theatre, could be attributed to the obvious lack of maintenance culture in the country.
Well, when you want to talk about our national stadium at Surulere, remember, it was once the center of all eyes and the pride of Africa. The endemic nature of lack of maintenance is one of the major problems that we are facing.
There's maintenance culture, but just that the cost has grown so wide. From the outside, you just say just a building. What is there to maintain, But come in and go around. It's not just a building. It's a building with technical facilities. Enormous. 7-story building, occupying over 230 square meters.
Each administration is remembered by the quality of service and efforts put in place to revitalize some of these projects. President Muhammadu Buhari's administration has made a remarkable development in championing the cause to revamp the National Theatre. Recently, the signing of the MOU between the federal government and the central bank on the investment plan to revamp the iconic National Art Theatre took place, and this will significantly have several positive impacts and gains for the state and the country.
The impact is huge. Huge. 1. Employment for youths. 2. Their creative talents go beyond.
Furthermore, the National Stadium, which was built in 1961 and expanded in 1972, is also receiving a facelift. Revitalizing these national projects will not only resonate our national heritage, but will also generate revenue to boost our economy and fill our space as the giants of Africa.
Okay, so we have our next guest. He's not live in the studio. During the course of the week, the crew stopped by so that he can weigh in on the discussion. He's Honorable Farouk Adamu. He is a politician and a social commentator, and he graciously weighed in. Let's see this.
It is a known fact that investing in infrastructure will drive economic growth, provide jobs, and deliver vital services to the country. The President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration has done so much in the area of road infrastructure across the length and breadth of the country. Yet this giant stride is not known among Nigerians.
Truthfully, the government has done a lot, but I think there's still room for improvement. But you see, it will be uncharitable for anybody in this country to say that there is no improvement on the infrastructural development in this country. Because I remember very well, the Minister of Works keeps saying, which is true and people can verify, that when we came in 2015 as a party, as a government, There were over 280 roads that contracts were awarded. Some mobilization were given. Some were abandoned for so many years. As at end of last year, those 260 or 280 roads were all completed. They cut across the whole nooks and crannies of this country. Whether that is enough? No, certainly, because there's a lot of deficiency, in the infrastructure of the country. But I think honestly, this government has done very well in terms of the road networks improvements. And I mean, I can mention a few. Lokoja to Abuja is being constructed. Kano to Abuja, Abuja Kano is being constructed. Lagos Ibadan is there. Maiduguri Kano is there. East-West Road is there. Second Niger Bridge is there. All works everywhere. So yes, but as I said, whether there are room for improvement, yes, there are. There are. I mean, the government probably needs to do more to ensure that they get to further places in the country.
The main achievement of the current administration in the transport sector is perhaps the rail rehabilitation projects that are still ongoing.
Well, you see, one thing also that this government taught Nigerians is that, look, there is only one government in this country. We are one people. Whether it was Shagari's government, whether it was Jonathan's government, it is still Nigerians' money, Nigeria's government. But the ability to understand that, some of these rail projects in this country were started as far back as Abacha time. That they were subsequently abandoned. But this government came to ensure now there is train between Lagos and Ibadan. At least it's going to, they've started test running it. Itakwe Ajaokuta is there. Kaduna Abuja is there. Just last week, the government also started another one from Dutse to Kano, Kano to Katsina, Katsina to Maradi in Niger Republic. There's the Eastern Line, which cuts from Port Harcourt through the eastern part of the country to Maiduguri. That one is there. Then the Lagos, Ibadan, Ilorin, Minna, Kaduna, Kano. So these things are in the works and everybody's seen that it's happening. And then also they have given jobs for the reactivation of the old line, which will mostly carry goods, from the north to south and from east to other eastern part of the country. It's always good to think ahead. Thinking ahead is that, look, we cannot continue to be stagnant. Someday, one day, another government will come that will probably, with collaboration of other African countries, connect that rail that goes to Maradi through to Libya, to Mauritania, to Morocco, to Europe, which means you will have another, entrance into this part of the world, that's African countries, to Nigeria, down to Lagos, through rail. So that is exactly part of what the government is thinking, that, look, someday these things are going to happen. But, to people who have no foresight, we think that why do you go and put rail going to Niger Republic? And in any case, it's been the trans-Saharan trade route that has been there from, time immemorial. So I think it's a good thing. And I'm telling you, someday, okay, let me give you an example of Dubai. They just recently appointed a 24-year-old minister. What they said was that, look, we want you to come and think ahead of 50 years from now. So that's how we should be thinking. So if us that are alive today think putting rail there is not going to be useful, think 50 years ahead, 100 years, 200 years, when probably our great-grandchildren would be the ones, and they will thank us for doing that, thinking ahead for them. So I think it's a good thing that has been put in place.
Very fondly over the years, government projects have been abandoned across the country. What is the situation today?
I think it is probably, sadly, hereditary, in us, that, governments come in and don't think of the country or the resources that it's ours. Each government that comes tries to start a project and finish it so that it will go along as they started and finish it. Not remembering that, look, those governments that put other projects before you, use the state resources State, I mean, whether federal or local government, whatever. So until such a time when we as a people agree that, look, whatever anybody did or anybody that does something, you should try to continue. If that project you feel was a wasted thing, you should try to probably adjust, make it better use instead of probably what you think. But don't leave projects abandoned, because when you leave projects abandoned, you're wasting the state resources, which I hope, that's exactly what this government is trying to inculcate into us Nigerians. That look, if this government leaves, may the next government that will take over continue with the project that this government might not have completed. Just like this government is completing all over the place, whether the airports, whether the road, whether the housing project, whether the water projects, the dams, the electricity project, all over the place. So I hope the government that will come will continue in the same stride so that we don't waste resources. And I've seen the Minister of Finance yesterday was saying that the government is going to sell some of these projects, some of these properties, to fund infrastructure in this country. And it's a welcome development, because you leave them, they get dilapidated, and in the long run, they get destroyed. Just like if you go to EFCC's warehouses, you find abandoned properties, vehicles that they have seized over time. When they had value, now they are valueless. So that does not make sense. That does not help the country. So it is good for the government to go over after those properties, sell them. Let's use the money for something else. Properties of government belong to all of us. They don't belong to Buhari. Buhari is no more Nigerian than you and I. I mean, all those in authority are holding it in trust on our behalf. So let's rally around any government. It doesn't matter, whichever government. But then, of course, if any government does anything that is not right, you can criticize. So I think what the government is doing about not only National Theatre, all over the place, so many things that this government is doing in trying to bring in Nigerians, to ensure that we own these properties, we own the country, we own the government, so that nobody feel that when you say government, what is government? Who is government? We, all of us, are government. So as long as people don't understand it, just like sadly the NSAS thing that happened, properties were destroyed. The hoodlums never thought that a traffic light belongs to you. It does not belong to Lagos State government or Abuja or Enugu or Bayelsa or anywhere. That traffic light belongs to you. Now, the hoodlums destroyed it in Lagos. People suffered before the government could, do it again. Where did they get the money? The same people's money is taken to reconstruct them back. So let us all own these things. Let us not loot. Let us not destroy, because if you destroy government property, you are destroying your property.
Valuing the cost of abandoned project is by no means straightforward, but they are undoubtedly high.
You find out that a project that will cost 10 billion, probably National Assembly will allocate only 200 million this year. So which means the project will only work for 200, the contractor will only work for 200 million. So until another year, another allocation comes. Now, before the year runs out, some other things would have come. And there are so many things to contend with. And government needs to do 1 or 2 or 3 things. And because of the nature of the country as well, you cannot just start one project, neglect other areas and say, until I finish with this. You need to start everything. Also, the way the country is. If you concentrate in one area, like one section of the country, that will also not help matters because of our diversity. So that also, brings about the problem. And funding, it's a huge, major challenge. You can see how much, recurrent expenditure is spent, probably 70%. If it's this government that tried to bring it down, 70 to 80% of our revenues goes to, recurrent expenditure. So these are also other major challenges that affect, funding of projects.
Infrastructure is key to reducing poverty, increasing growth, and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. What is the relationship between road development and road tax payment?
Nigerians are tired of these taxes here and there. There are a lot of taxation in the country. But yes, you could see that's what you call education tax. You have TED fund, where government is taxing businesses to fund education. And yes, when we come about this tolling, I'm sure that will help in the infrastructure. And mark you, the airport buildings, the projects that are happening in the airport, in the aviation, line, is mainly funded not only from budget, but from passenger taxes. So yes, government is tapping into that too, but then people are complaining of taxation. And even though most Nigerians don't pay taxes very well, but still, people are tired of this taxation. But I think the road tax need to be put in place, certainly, but not petroleum tax.
The need to complete existing projects cannot be overemphasized. So, how do we move forward from here?
First of all, believing in ourselves, honestly, believing in ourselves that, look, as at today, we are called Nigeria, and the only country we have as at today is Nigeria. Now, believing in ourselves as one people, that if you destroy the road in Abeokuta, you are destroying what is, owned by us. So the government needs to be more transparent with the people, because sometimes frustration also makes people not cooperate with government. When government is transparent in trying to explain to the people, because government needs to explain that, look, this is how much money we have, this is what we are doing with the money, and the people to see that, yes, that is true. So if the government carries people along, then there will be cooperation, then there will be change of attitude. But moving forward, this brings us to election. Now let the people also play their role. Make sure you vote for anybody from whichever party that will ensure do what you feel is right. So if you vote the right people that have the interests of the country, the people, probably things will move forward. Probably then we can believe in ourselves and make sure that, look, so that if there is a problem with anybody, you blame yourself for putting either the president there, or the governor there, or local government chairman, or member House of Reps, or senator. So I think we should, as much as possible, try to hold our elected political leaders accountable, and then let also the leaders, the political leaders, hold the people accountable.
That was very interesting and balanced. First, the government belongs to all of us. As a people, we must hold our government accountable. And then the government must also be transparent enough for us to trust them. So everybody has a role to play. That was really interesting. And thank you to Honorable. We'll be moving on quickly. Every festive season, the Lokoja Abuja route is one route that is very popular. People complain of serious hold-up and so many other things. But with this feature we are going to see now, we'll be bringing you up-to-date report of what the situation on that road is now. Let's see it together.
Infrastructure such as ports, airports, railway system, roads and bridges are needed for integration, migration, and trade between states. The existing Niger Bridge, having been in use for 56 years, is a gateway to the southeast, hosting commuters from the north and southwest. Over the years, there is fear of collapse of the existing bridge due to age and heavy vehicular traffic on the bridge. For these reasons, the federal government of Nigeria awarded the second Niger Bridge to ease the suffering of the people.
We have achieved to date approximately 55% completion. The bridge is one side of the bridge is almost completed. Even from the existing bridge, when you look to your right hand side, you will see that a lot of work has gone and a lot of things are already in place. The south side of the bridge, because it's a dual carriageway, the south side has commenced, the north side is almost completed. We are launching both from the Delta State side of the bridge and the Anambra State side as well. All the substructures are in place. The bridge deck is already being launched, and we expect to complete the north side this year. Hopefully by the end of this year, you will see that the interchange will be substantially completed. So work is really going on at a very satisfactory pace. The project length itself
is 11.9 kilometers. We have the bridge. The bridge itself is 1.59 kilometers. Then on the Anambra State side, the length of the road, the approach road is 7 kilometers. And on the Delta State side is 3.3 kilometers.
The second Niger Bridge is a welcome development to Deltans and of course our Anambra counterparts. And to make that bridge meaningful to those who live around that corridor, the Delta State government have decided to construct 3-kilometer length of road connecting the second Niger Bridge to the communities around that Oko area. And the road is called Oko Amakon Road. The road, when completed, it will ease commuters that traverses that area easy access to the second Niger Bridge.
The commuters are eagerly waiting for the completion of the second Niger Bridge so as to ease flow of traffic and improve safety on that road.
Sometimes some vehicles do spoil in the bridge, and when the vehicles spoil, it usually cause go slow, as in hold up, and sometimes cars do usually burn in the bridge. And for this new bridge, I guess that if we finish the new bridge, that it will help out to reduce the go slow or hold up that usually occurred here.
Because this Niger bridge, this very present one is very narrow, and there is not this demarcation in between this bridge here. There is no demarcation, so the drivers, they drive the way they like, and in so doing, it will block. You understand? So this second one will help us a lot. There will be no traffic jam once that one is ready.
Residents of Anambra State, Delta State, and other commuters citing the level of work being done are thankful and optimistic that the federal government has kept to their promise of the second Niger Bridge to ease the flow of traffic.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a very good picture. We'll go on a short break. When we come back, the deal continues. The takeaway from all this that we've a discussion since yesterday is the fact that Nigeria is a country of great potentials, great resources, great human resources, but we must galvanize, we must work together. We must realize that we are all of us are part of the government, and we must do our best, and the government itself must also be transparent so that people can trust and be passionate and patriotic to the government. Well, we've come to the end of the show. Until we come your way next weekend, do your best. I do my little best. She does a little best. All this best to come together to become a remarkable best and to move our country forward. Goodbye. God bless you. God bless us. God bless Nigeria. Goodbye.